Hi there, I'm Peter Millard, and in the 10-minute workshop this week we're going to take a look at Father's Day gift ideas, but with a little bit of a twist. That's coming up next. So yes, Father's Day is very nearly upon us. It's just a couple of short weeks away. I think it's on June the 16th this year. And I don't really celebrate Father's Day. I never really have. It always felt to me like a bit of a manufactured thing as opposed to Mothering Sunday, which has been very traditional and has been on the cards for donkey's years. Then again, I'm just the dad in the family, so I don't really have much say in the matter. And if we're going to get given gifts, then we might as well propose something that we might actually find useful. So I thought I'd do a short list of a few things for you YouTubing dads out there, because I know there's a few fledgling YouTubers who watch this channel, and maybe there's a few who don't watch it anyway, but might find some of these gift ideas useful. And we'll start with something to try and improve your image a little bit. So the first step towards improving your image is not actually a makeover, it's a manual white balance of your video. And to do that you need something white. Obviously you take a grey card. A standard grey card like this has an 18% reflective grey, neutral grey on one side, and a standard white on the other. These are pretty reasonably priced, they're about $5. You can pick these up on Amazon. But what I'd recommend is actually spending a little bit more and getting one of these. This is a Lasterlight fold up in a bag grey card. Whoops, pops out to give you grey and white, but critically it also has a little target on there, so you can actually put this in frame and use it as a focus reference as well. Now that's really useful, because if you've done any YouTube videos, you know that focus can be one of the things that can really throw you off. You're too far away from the camera to focus manually. Autofocus doesn't always work very well, and to be honest, you can't really see the screen, or certainly I can't see the screen well enough to see whether or not your image is in focus. So pop one of these in the screen where you need to stand, focus on this manually, and then make sure you're in the right place, and that'll go a long way towards improving the video that you shoot. Now the next thing that will improve your video quality is actually stability. You may well have a tripod already, but if you haven't, then I recommend one of these. This is a Kingjoy BT258. It's a little travel tripod, but big enough to work quite comfortably within a workshop setting. Comes with a decent quality ball head, but with the ball head taken off and the center column whipped off and turned around, you can actually get this into a very small space. It's about 45 centimeters long when actually stripped down. Comes with a very useful little travel bag, and an extra little twist is that one of the legs will come off and act as a monopod as well if you really need to travel light. Now, if you watch quite a few YouTube videos, you've probably seen a few guys using these kind of things. These are Joby Gorilla Pods. The legs bend around and you can twist them around onto all kinds of things. They're really good, but quite expensive. They're about 80 quid, these now. And to be honest, in a workshop setting, they're not that useful because there are only so many things you can wrap them onto. Instead, I've come up with something a little different, certainly cheaper, and it's a bit of a mongrel. It's made of parts, so you can always get a family member to buy one part and then somebody else to buy the other parts as well. In fact, let's sit down and go through this in a bit more detail. So the thing that sets this piece apart is this. It's the clamp that everything attaches to. These are called a super clamp. They're made by Manfrotto. It's a sort of a hang-on from my photographic days when I've had a lot of these. You can get these bare like this, or sometimes with a stud in there as well. They're a little bit more expensive to get the stud. I don't really think they're worth it. This one's I've had for a long time. They're only really useful if you're going to get two of them together, unless you've got the typical lighting stand that these can fit into. They don't really serve any great function. So if you're just a regular YouTuber, just get the plain one. They're about £20 for the plain one, and these are really good. They're very solid and very well made. Into that I've fitted a slightly longer version of one of these. This is actually made by Cine Gear Pro. This is quite an expensive one. You can get a cheaper version of this made by Small Rig. You can actually get much cheaper versions made by Newer, but they're not that good. You can tell the difference between these two. The cheaper ones have this sort of knurled 5-star sort of knob on them, whereas the more expensive, the better quality ones have just this sort of flat grip. It's much better to get a really good tight grip on that. Gives you a much more sturdy fixing. What you do, these come with a standard 1/4 20 threaded rod on the end. and there's a thread in the base of the super clamp, and that just fits on there. Now, these threads are actually quite long, and if you put them straight in, you'll actually push part of the clamp out. So you've either got to cut that down or do what I've done here and attach a little adapter. There's a link in the video description as well to a whole bunch of these sort of adapters. These are really useful little things to have. That just steps it away far enough to get that clamp to attach on there really firmly. And then at the other end, we've got a simple little ball head, tripod head attached, and that's fine. You can fit a DSLR on this without any problem at all. This one's by X-Source, and these are each about £15. The head's about 15 quid, the arm is about 15 quid, and as I say, the clamp itself is about 20. So altogether, you know, a reasonable amount of money, but this is incredibly useful because you can clamp this just about anywhere, onto any shelf, onto a light fitting. I've had mine clamped to my saw, to my table saw, to my bandsaw, to my Capex, anywhere where you want those sort of tight up detail shots, they come in really handy. And the other thing this particular tripod head comes with is a quick release plate. It's a quick release tripod, which means that your cameras can just click in and out easily, and you can swap that out for a camera mount like that one, or even for a simple little phone mount like this. The benefit of this is that, for example, you can have one of these on your main tripod, have it set up on a wide shot, then halfway through take the camera off and do a detail shot, and then put the camera back on the tripod, and because it's on a quick release plate, it's going to go back in exactly the same place, and you continue the shot after that. It's really, really useful if you're just working with the one camera. Now, one of the areas where you can make improvements fairly quickly and fairly easily is in the audio on your videos. A lot of modern cameras and smartphones actually work surprisingly well as long as you're close to them. But when you get further away from them, then the quality of the audio starts to suffer. But that's fairly easy to fix. How did my audio just get better? Well, because I'm using this microphone attached to my other camera. By putting the microphone closer to the person speaking, it picks up more sound. It's as simple as that. Audio engineers will tell you that there's all kinds of sweet spots within a room, and I'm sure they're right. But if you want decent quality audio to start with, you need to get the microphone as close as possible to the person that's speaking. If you watch TV or movies, behind the scenes, making of type things, you'll see somebody with a microphone on a boom arm holding it out close to the talent. We don't have that luxury when we're doing YouTube videos, and what I've done here is simply boom an external microphone off the camera so that it works through the external microphone socket on the camera itself. Now, I've got my camera in a cage. That's because I've got fat thumbs and I can barely pick the thing up without me setting off some weird shortcut that I then have to go through all the menus through to try and sort out. So putting it in a cage like this makes it a much easier thing to pick up and move around. And all I've done is put a small, again, these are small rig, again, a small super clamp off a little screw-in adapter onto the cage itself. Now, absolutely do not try and hang something this size off of your camera hot shoe. You'll rip it clean out, but you don't have to go to the expense of a cage like this. A cage like this is around about sort of 70 or 80 pounds, quite a lot of money, and even that handle cost another 30 or 40. You can actually get, and I've got one somewhere, a simple little L-mount flash bracket, and you could attach your little super clamp to that. This bracket's about £10 and the clamps are about 7 or 8. Get that angled right, and then you can put your little boom arm in there so that it sticks out just out of shot but within reach, so you can get good clear sound. This boom arm is just a selfie stick. It's an HD selfie stick, costs about £10. There are links again to all these down in the video description. There's a couple of little adapters in there as well, one to attach the microphone to it, and a particular type of cable. It's a 1 meter extension cable, but it has a angle on the end of it rather than being a straight connector, just to keep it out of the way of the screen so that we can see what we're doing instead of having a cable sticking right out straight across it. Now the microphone that I'm using for this is a Rode VideoMic Pro. We're still recording off this one, by the way. It's a really good mic, very nice quality. Rode sort of the de facto standard in many ways for YouTubers and vloggers. The VideoMic Pro had a few battery issues with it. It's nothing wrong with it as such, it's just a little bit awkward to get the batteries in and out, and they produced a new version last year. The new version's getting in for a couple of £100. This one's about 130, but because the new version came out, a lot of these are on the market used. People upgraded and they thought they might keep this as a spare, and then a lot of them seem to be on the market again. So if you don't mind buying used, you can pick up one of these around about the £40 or £50 mark. That's an amazingly good price for a microphone of this sort of quality. But if that's still a little bit spendy for you, then there's one called a Takstar SCG598. Again, links to these down in the video description. The Takstar is surprisingly good for the money, about £25, and obviously a lot more wallet friendly. Again, the trick to getting decent audio is getting the microphone as close as possible to the person that's speaking, and obviously this is much closer than normal because that microphone would normally be out of shot. And lastly, the other way of getting decent audio for your videos is to use a lapel microphone or a lavalier microphone like this one. These are tiny little microphones that typically clip onto a shirt collar like this. In fact, let me just plug this in and then you can have a listen. How's that? Yeah, so these just clip onto your clothing. This particular one comes with 6 meters of cable, so you can actually get a reasonable distance away from the camera and still get your voice picked up normally. And of course, they're particularly good if you do need to turn your back to the camera at any time, if you're doing some kind of demonstration. This particular one is made by Boya. It's the BY-M1, and I've just bought another one of these. I think I've got a couple of these already. I bought another one as a spare because these are down to a rather astonishing £11 on Amazon at the moment. You will not find a better lavalier microphone for £11. These are absolutely fantastic. And I think I'll leave it there for this week. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found it useful. I hope you found it interesting. Links to all the products that we've talked about today are down in the video description. And if there's still nothing there for you, well, there's always the Teespring store immediately beneath this video. Who knows, you might find something there that'll tickle your fancy for Father's Day. But that's it for this week. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.